Hi, everyone. I am so glad you were joining me today. And I have a guest, and I love introducing you to all the people in the world that can teach us new things, teach me new things, teach you new things, and also just all of the people in the world that are out there to help us with the things that we need help with. We don't ever need to feel like we're alone and that no one understands us or that no one can help us because there's always somebody you can find that will be able to do that. So today I have Marie Young with us, and she teaches yoga and meditation and so many other things. And because this is an anxiety podcast and we talk about anxiety a lot, I want to just give you so many different ideas and ways that you can help with those uncomfortable feelings that you have inside. And she's going to teach us a lot about that today. But first of all, I'm going to have her tell us more about her. So, Marie, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. It's been lovely talking with you so far.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I started my healing journey, I guess, in the yoga and meditation world. I came to yoga kind of late 20s, early 30s, and it helped my nervous system. It did that great thing of like that calm alert state, right? Where you just feel engaged but not overwhelmed. It opened up my muscles in a way that I think, standard cardio exercise didn't. And so it was a really good find for me. And then part of that was meditation. And then training in that and teaching that over time, I developed a system called body informed resiliency. And that is just some, body-based exercises, relaxation techniques is the simplest way I can put it. And just there's definitely some science behind it, but it's any chair, anywhere, like anyone can do them. And it can give a reset in about 5 minutes that helps the autonomic nervous system. We were talking just a little bit ago about emotional regulation, like
Mhm.
it helps that system to regulate, and then the emotional regulation can quickly follow. So
Mm.
yeah, that's kind of my story and what I've been teaching for the last several years.
Well, let's talk about this chair. Like, I don't know exactly what chair, what was the other
Any
word?
chair, anywhere. Like
Any
that's
chair,
just
anywhere. I
my
love
my
that.
fun tagline for it.
One of the things that I didn't tell you about my audience is that some of my audience are school counselors because I was a school counselor and
Mm.
I have been to some conferences and, done some presentations. And so some of the people that are my listeners are school counselors. And so when you said that, it was just like, oh, that would be so great if a student had come to my office and I had a way right there in my office while they sat in their chair across from me where we could do some regulation stuff. And of course, it was available to me. I just really didn't know a lot about it when I was actually a school counselor. So,
Mm.
can you give us maybe I don't know if there's a quick one that you can tell us
Sure.
how they could do it as a school counselor or as a parent, or even if a teen is listening, how they could do this maybe sitting in the classroom.
Gosh, sitting in the classroom.
Would that make it different? We could do
Yeah,
it
I
two
think so.
different
I
ways.
love, that's certainly something to think about because I think about it, my background's more like in the office setting,
Sure.
I think when you were saying like school counselor, throughout the day when we're sitting in our chair, what happens, it's a weird thing with energy, like your body energy stagnates, right? Because you're not moving your body.
Mm-hmm.
But then your head energy, because you're thinking so much, like your head energy just kind of probably, it increases, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And so the regulation comes when you're trying to meet in the middle. I, and so anything you can do to help that. And so we were talking about like I have this thing just called shaking it out where you just do full body shake. And that's probably more like in an office setting. So I
Mm-hmm.
imagine you
Right,
like as
not
a
in the
school,
classroom.
yeah, as a school counselor, going into your office and just like moving, it's really just moving energy, right?
Mhm.
But it's not the easiest thing to look at. Sometimes people be like, what are you doing? But probably I think the seated cat cow, and we can go over that if you'd like to
Sure.
join in. It's super easy. If you'll just sit up straight and close your eyes and then just feet on the floor. They can be in your shoes or on the floor themselves. And you're just like become aware of your spine and your sitting bones. So, those are the obviously the bony parts of your bottom. And just really allow them to make contact with the chair as you allow your feet to make contact with the floor. And just really feeling the weight of your feet on the floor and your sitting bones on your chair.
Mm.
And then if you'll inhale and then just sighing like, ah.
Mm.
And first of all, the sigh is a great indication to your nervous system that everything's okay.
Mm.
Like it's that awe feeling. That's why it always feels so good
Mhm.
that you're not in danger. The tiger is not coming to get you.
Mhm. Mm.
And you're just really taking a moment to connect with your chair and the floor.
Mm.
And then once you kind of have that, you're like, okay, this feels pretty good. We'll add on. So just keeping your eyes closed, because that's another signal. You can't close your eyes when the tiger is chasing you, right? You can only close your
Mhm.
eyes when you feel somewhat safe, but it works the other way too. If you know that you're safe intellectually, and then you're like, I'm just going to take this moment to go inward, close your eyes. And then when you inhale, just kind of blast your heart forward. And then exhale, you'll round your upper back. So this is, if you've done cat cow on all fours, this is the seated version. And if you need to open your eyes just to take a peek, you can. So this is the exhale is the rounding. Inhale is heart forward. Exhale is rounding. And let's just do that a few moments here. And this effect is subtle. But what it really helps is to move cerebral spinal fluid that's at the base of the spine up to the base of the head. And then it crosses the blood-brain barrier and flushes the brain with this gorgeous like fluid that helps to move out toxins from the brain.
Mm. I think this is something that's so important for kids sitting in school all day long. Like, just think
Mm,
about that. Like, they
mm-hmm.
just go from class to class, sitting, 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 sitting. And like you were saying, even like with the teachers in the school, well, the teachers are usually up and about more because they're teaching the class. But as a school counselor, I sat most of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I was working with a student,
Yeah.
we were usually sitting in chairs and talking to each other. And I sat most of the day, but my brain was constantly going because I was problem solving and I was creating and I was thinking and I was, all the things, or, writing an email to somebody or whatever, or using the phone to call people about different things that were happening. And I just think, yes, the school counselor needs to move around and shake and, get fluids going, but so do kids. Like, they just set so much of the day, and they do get up between classes to walk to the next one or whatever, but there's a lot of sitting. And I think a lot of my clients talk about how the sitting is hard, like sitting for that long of a time. And some teachers are stricter than others about whether you can leave the room or if you can stand up or you can do different things. And you could do that in your chair while you're
Mm-hmm.
listening, while you're taking notes, while, I mean, like, even when you're mentioning closing your eyes, maybe, even if they just did the movements and still had their eyes open so they could see what was happening, or the teacher was happier with them, looking like they're paying attention, it still would get things moving and helping them to regulate that way, because I think school is so anxiety producing for kids. We kind of
Mm.
talked about this before we started recording, but at the time of this recording, it's back to school time. And a
Mm.
lot of my clients are starting to talk about, the summer's been kind of fun because you kind of just do whatever you want to do for the most part. I mean, some kids don't get to do what they want to do, but a lot of them do whatever they want and sleep late and play video games and all the stuff. But then when it's school time again, they're like, oh no, now I'm going to have all this homework and I'm going to have my sports practices. I'm going to have my job. I'm going to have chores at home. I want to spend time with my friends. I want to have video game time. My parents expect me to hang out with them some. So, what are some things that you would say to a young person that they're getting ready to have what they feel like is super overwhelming with all of these activities? How do they find time for themselves and how do they still stay regulated when so many different things are happening?
Um, I mean, that's the million-dollar question. We were talking about this before. Like, oh, I'm trying to think about what I would say to Issa, my daughter. And with teens, and I'm sure you know this, like they're just notorious contrarians. Like
Mhm.
it's finding a way to introduce these exercises because I think if they were doing them with their friends, I don't know if they would because like the shake it out, they would be like,
Oh,
that's
that's too
weird.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's too weird. I don't want to do that. So maybe the stiller, I have some still exercises,
Mm,
diaphragmatic breathing, which we can go through
yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
which, might be better for them. I
Mhm.
find as an adult, I like whatever I have an idea of what I need to do to balance the situation. Like if
Mhm.
I've just been sitting too long, I just need to move the energy, right? So
Yeah.
that's shake it out. I loved what you were saying. Like they definitely, they get up through walk to their classes and everything. And I think, with kids, it's a little bit different because, well, it is different because, their systems are working differently than ours. Like we have
Mhm.
to kind of intentionally guide ours, like moving the cerebral spinal fluid up with seat to the cat cow. We have to do things with intention, whereas theirs may just be moving normally because
Mhm.
they're superhumans at that age.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so I would say like the diaphragmatic breathing. I have some hand stretches because the science behind all of my work is the ventral branch of the vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve is cranial nerve 10. It's vagus is a Latin term meaning wandering, and it's the longest nerve in the body, or one
Mm.
of them. And it goes from the the occiput cranial nerves in deep inside, and then all the way down to the intestines, the viscera.
Mm.
And it branches, it has a front branch, which is the front body, and then a dorsal, which is the back. And so it innervates the face, the throat, gives nerve endings to the face and the throat and the chest and the heart and lungs. I mean, it's involved in so many processes.
Mm.
And so anything you can do, any kind of facial massage is what I found. Any movement there actually will stimulate it. So it becomes this loop, like
Mhm.
you can intentionally stimulate by touching, like let's, for example, touch your face, massage your face. That's got nerves in it. The nerves are connected to the vagus nerve, the ventral branch, and then that helps to activate it, for lack of
Mm.
a better term. And so when the ventral branch is activated or engaged, let's say, that is when you get like a nervous system sweet spot between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And most of the time we're in sympathetic, that's the fight or flight. And optimally that's fine because it provides alertness, we're alert, but just with all that we're dealing with, and it's not just the acute forms of stress, but like the subtle forms of stress, even with too much media or too many
Mhm.
games or, just too
Mhm.
much information. After a while, it just like boom, it's
Mhm.
anxiety, right?
Right.
So, teens might gravitate a little bit more towards maybe some of the hand exercises or maybe some of I call it mouth work, anything that doesn't look too strange, because
Mhm.
I
Right.
guess you can probably speak to this, but I know it from my own daughter who's almost 13. It's like, so they feel self-conscious
Yes.
and they don't want to do anything that looks, I mean,
Mhm.
she's just like, Mom, you look weird. But, when you get older, you're like, I don't care if I look weird if it makes me feel better.
Right,
You
right,
know?
exactly. But
So,
no matter what we do, they think we look weird. But
yeah.
well, what are some
Yeah.
like when you said first of all massaging your face, is there any specific way or just touching it and
Yeah.
manipulating it?
It's okay. So I'll walk you through some of it. So it's any way that feels good. So another piece of this is to not add an anxiety on it you have to do it a certain way,
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
like
Right.
because really energetically, and this is the yoga background speaking, but and probably some other science behind it, but our hands are like extensions of our heart energy, so
Mm-hmm.
they can be very healing,
Mm-hmm.
hands-on massage. People have experienced this. So just with like, hey, my hands are healing myself is how I always say it. But how I like to start is if you'll look forward and you'll just turn your head, you can turn it to the right. And if you'll feel down into, and I always do this with eyes closed because eyes closed helps me relax more, but if you'll feel down into your notch between your clavicles, you'll feel like a tendon. And this is the SCM muscle is on the other side of it. And this goes all the way up to behind the ear. And so with this, it's kind of a pinching motion, but not too pinchy, and just really rubbing your thumb back there or on it, up and down, and then switching to the other side when you are ready. And I call it like kind of achieving this good sense of an owie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of getting in there because we carry a lot of stress in here, at least I do. Most people I know do. And then releasing that, and then if you'll take your two fingers and then just kind of press them on either sides of your neck, you may feel a release even in your sinuses, depending on how tight you are. Like sometimes I have so much tightness that I can feel it in my sinuses. But these are the scalenes. So you just move up and down in a way that feels good to you. The basic exercise is you want to find those muscles, those scalenes, and then just massage in whatever way feels good to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of releasing that. If your hands, sometimes just with all of the computer stuff, my hands can get a little sore that way. So you stretch out your hands. And then I use the thumbs underneath my chin to start. And then just under the chin, not the thyroid. We want to be real careful around the thyroid, but you're just kind of massaging lightly, tapping lightly if that feels good, kind of spending time with what your body is asking you to, and that'll change, asking you for, and that'll change day to day, kind of what you need. And then finding that TMJ, that joint that is, yeah, everyone knows it. It's under the cheekbones. It's how the upper and lower jaw connect. And then I like to push that in a little bit. Again, you'll hopefully feel something on your sinus, and then I just massage that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a gum chewer, and
Mm-hmm.
so I feel this here. And so do that, and then just take a moment, release your hands, and then close your eyes if they're not already, and then just feel sensations in those areas. And it should feel good, like a warmth or a tingling, just a relaxation effect for those areas. And it's empowering because it's something you can do yourself. Like it's not going to be the same as if you go to the spa and get a massage, but with kind of bringing the intention of just wanting to help yourself relax in an active way, knowing that by doing this, you are helping that ventral branch of the vagus nerve to come online. And that's part of the facial. Another one I like to do a lot because we do so much with our hands is I stretch my fingers. And this is something I think kids can kind of get behind, right? Like just the stretching of the fingers, the shaking out of the hands, just kind of moving that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's your experience. Do you feel like I'm super sensitive to that? I think that's why this is kind of my work, but I'm always curious like what other people who maybe just have a different skill set, like what your feeling is afterwards, like sensation wise, if you feel something.
I am feeling so tingly everywhere, and I have this whole entire time we've been talking, but I'm also an ASMR person.
Uh-huh. Oh, cool.
I love ASMR and I'm obsessed with it. And what is so fun about it, I talk about it a lot in my podcast, and
Yeah.
so my listeners will be like, "Oh yeah, this again." But I I was experiencing that. I know at least in kindergarten. I know I was like 5 years old when I was experiencing the tingles of that.
Hmm.
But I thought there was something wrong with me because, of course, we don't know what's going on and we don't have anyone to talk about it to. And I didn't even know how to describe it when I was 5, that this was a feeling, and I enjoyed it. And I would seek it out. And a lot of it when I was in kindergarten had to do with the crayons on the paper, like the feeling of that.
Yeah, and the sound.
Yes, and the
Oh,
sound of that, and just watching somebody getting their crayons out of their box and coloring was just like mind blowing to me. I could
yeah.
watch somebody do that forever. And so d- I never told a soul my whole life that I had this, and no one ever talked about it. I never knew anyone else to say, "Hey, this happens to me." So I kind of, well, I didn't forget about it. I've always enjoyed it. I even have certain voices, like as a school counselor, there were certain students that would come in and I would just be like, "Oh, I could just listen to you forever," because that voice
I
was just
love
like
that
so
so much. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then when my daughter was an adult, and this was probably maybe 8 years ago, so not, not that long ago, she said, "Mom, you know that tingly feeling you get when you hear certain sounds?" And I'm like, "Oh, gosh." I said, "I never told anyone that." And she said, "Mom, it's a thing. It's called ASMR." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Tell me all the things." She was like, "Well, there's videos all over about it." And every day, I have to spend a little bit of time. That's sort of my meditation time because it's
Yeah.
so relaxing to me. When I listen to, and I have a lot of ASM artists that I enjoy, so I kind of switch around to the different ones depending on what I want to hear that day. But I get those tingles and I'm so relaxed, and that's how I feel right now. So this,
Oh,
did that same thing where it just made me, it almost makes me feel floaty. Like after we
yeah.
did that, I feel, yeah, and I like that feeling. I enjoy, to me, that means I'm relaxed and calm. And I like
Yeah.
that. I like that feeling.
I think that's perfectly said because the floaty part is super important because that's the relaxation piece, right?
Hmm.
And then we can work in just a minute with the diaphragmatic breathing and then also just back to like bottom on the chair, feet on the floor because you want to ground it back in, right? So you're not, I mean, this is where we sort of master like our instrument of our body, right? Like
Hmm.
no, I'll stay with the floaty. I want the floaty right now. Or the floaty is
Hmm.
really great for like bedtime to help me sleep. Or,
Sure.
but yeah, I love the ASMR piece. And I think
Hmm.
that's where, and you probably know this as a counselor, like it's just so much better now than maybe when we were growing up. Like, because there's all these nonverbal things that we feel or that we sense that just they're not talked about. And if something is
Hmm.
not talked about, then you're like, I'm all alone in this,
Yes, and it feels like there's something wrong. Like I
Yeah.
literally, even though I enjoyed the tingly sensation that I was getting when I was little and I would seek it out, I would have never told anyone that I was experiencing that
Yeah.
because I thought, well, that might mean that I'm bad or it might mean that something's wrong with me. And so I just don't want anyone to know about it. And if no one knows, then there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, right,
And
right.
so, and I
Everything's
think a
great.
lot of kids, and I see this with so many of my clients about anxiety, they feel like I'm alone in this, having this anxiety. I'm looking out at these other people and no one seems to have it but me. Well, that's
Hmm.
because you're not inside all these other people's minds or bodies. You don't know what those other people are experiencing, but it just looks like, oh, these people have it all figured out and I'm the person who has a problem. So I love just educating about that because I think
Yeah.
that I want all young people to realize that, all of these sensations are just part of being human. And,
Mm.
some of them don't feel good. Like we have a lot of uncomfortable emotions inside our bodies that we don't like, and we want to be able to process them and get them moving on somewhere else so we don't have to feel that uncomfortableness or that even pain sometimes. But feeling that, there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to feel it, allow it, let it go through and move on. So,
Yeah, and
um,
I think I love that point. And I think for me, it took a while. I'm trying to educate Isa and continue to educate myself on there's feeling, which is emotions, right? And then
mhm.
there's sensations. And so
Yes.
it's allowing the sensations to be there without trying to push them away.
Yes.
And certainly the same with emotions, but
Mhm.
emotions have that sensation element. It's like it feels the sensation
Mhm.
in the body.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
we
and
try to resist it or get rid of it because it doesn't feel good.
yeah,
But then
totally.
we didn't realize that doing that makes it actually worse or stay longer.
Right. Because they're
Mhm.
meant to move. Yeah, I think
Yes.
mine isn't so, I mean, it's all combined, it's all connected, but mine isn't so, mine's more about like the sensations, like feeling into those sensations. And because then there's the energy, piece, because the
Mhm.
sensations are energy. So
Right.
being able to move the energy. Yeah. In ASMR, I love that you said that. Like
Mhm.
now I'm thinking I could call it like ASMR in a chair or, like
I love it.
because you're right. There is that part of us that just needs to veg and go offline. And
Mhm.
I feel like it's in that. Like you're just your senses are engaged in a neutral way. It's relaxing. And like you said, you need to do that every day. And especially to counter, because so much comes in through our eyes now with
Mhm.
our devices and that's directly into the brain, I think in a much more impactful way than some of the other senses.
Mhm.
And it's just so overused, right? Like
Mhm.
so the ASMR brings in the sound piece. And
Mhm.
that's, I think, in my experience, that's been like a fast track to relaxation. So,
Yeah, I think so. Well, did you want to teach us the
yes,
diaphragmatic,
yes.
is
Let's,
that how you say it, breathing?
it's a
And
funny
then
word. It's diaphragmatic. Um,
diaphragmatic. Okay.
Yeah, it's, breathing with the diaphragm. And I'll just say a couple pieces about this in my own studies on it. You know how a lot of people will say, like, if you're upset, to breathe deeply, right? Like, take
Mhm.
deep breaths. And part of that is very, very true. Because you want to get out, if you think of the lungs, they're kind of roughly, you can divide them into three areas, and it's from the clavicle to the nipple. That's like the upper, and the nipple to above the navel, and then above the navel, really, it's not the lungs, because the lungs end, and I'll show you in a minute, but the lungs end with the floating ribs in the back, but they take up a lot of the back. But when you're breathing diaphragmatically, what it does is the diaphragm will push down on the viscera, the intestines, and give them a massage. So that's kind of that lower third, what I refer to as a lower third, isn't technically, but you can feel it.
Mhm.
Um, so it's not, the deep belly breathing is important, like where you're, if you just place your hands on your belly and you inhale and let your belly kind of inflate a little bit, and then you exhale and let it kind of collapse in, that's close to diaphragmatic breathing. But like taking a big inhale and then exhale again, that's an easy way into diaphragmatic breath. But you can deep belly breathe without breathing with your diaphragm, and that's all fine. Your body will figure it out, because the body is so intelligent.
Mhm.
And all of this is really connected anyway. It's a question of where you put your focus. But if you really kind of master diaphragmatic breathing, again, it can be a fast track to resetting very quickly, and in a way that's grounded and helps get you out of the sympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
So that's my spiel on that. So if you'll take your hands and just take your thumbs to your back body, and just move your thumbs down to where you can feel the last ribs down there. Doesn't have to be the exact area, but feel some bones, and then, oh, I can't feel them more. Okay. and then place your four fingers around your waist. And it's like your hands are on your hip, but they're much higher. It's
Mhm.
kind of what this feels like, right?
Mhm.
So then inhale slowly. You can close your eyes to close out the outside world. Inhale, and you should feel your hands move, kind of flare out, your arms flare out. So inhale, they'll flare out and up a little bit. And then as you exhale, they'll fall back down a little bit.
Hmm.
So this is a beginning way to really feel, okay, I'm breathing with my diaphragm. Inhale, let that flare out, and then exhale. And it may be a little uncomfortable because we're not used to breathing this way. We have to do it intentionally. We do it at night when we're sleeping. Inhale, allow that flare, and then exhale. Your hands will fall back in. And when you feel like you have that, you can remove your hands and just place them on your legs. And then go back, inhale, and try to approximate that flare with the ribs. You feel the side ribs moving out and up on the inhale, and then exhale, they fall back down. So let's just workshop that for about 2 minutes. Inhaling, feeling that flare, and then exhaling. And if you're not used to it, your mind's probably like, what's happening? What are you doing? Just give yourself a little bit of a grace and be like, I'm just trying a new skill here. And I'll just speak a little bit. So you've got, the diaphragm's a muscle. And when we're breathing like this, on the inhale, it's going to push down. And like I said, it helps to massage the internal organs. On the exhale, it floats back up. And then you also have some intercostal muscles. Those are the muscles between the ribs. And on the inhale, it's fun to kind of feel how much air you can get into your lungs this way. This really is the way to get the most amount of air into your lungs. Then you exhale. So just a couple more rounds here, just noticing if you can inhale, if you can feel it come up your back, because your back is actually 60% lungs. And just notice if you can use the air you're pulling in as a way to kind of warm up those intercostal muscles. And then when you feel ready, you can just release the diaphragmatic breath and just breathe normally, like however the breath wants to fall in your lungs. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Yeah, so any tingles there? Your eyes look pretty clear and relaxed right now. How do
I
you feel?
I can't believe how different it felt because I've always thought that you were just supposed to make your belly rise like that, and that feels different because we don't typically breathe like that. But thinking about it, like going through my back and like my ribs actually moving, I mean, I realize they probably move anyway, but like really thinking about that, I can't believe how different that felt.
Awesome.
And yeah, I love that I know a different way of like targeting that because I didn't think about like, feeling where my ribs end and then feeling my fingers going out at first. And I could still replicate that when my hands weren't there, but I would have needed that at first to feel what does that feel like because we don't breathe like that normally.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
yeah,
so right.
that was so good. I love these ideas. I can't wait to use them one to one with my clients, but also
Yeah.
just the listeners just experiencing this in a different way. So tell us more about how the listeners can get a hold of you or see what you're doing or work with you if they want to.
Yeah, totally. So my website is the easiest way. They can do a book a free consultation on my homepage. The website is www.marie, M-A-R-I-E, and then the letter B is in boy, and then Young, Y-O-U-N-G, mariebyoung.com. And that's got my socials on it. So that's probably the quickest way they can
Mhm.
book something through Calendly. Am I saying that right? Calendly with me.
Yes,
I always
that's
get
what I
that a little
used
bit
to.
wrong. Um, and yeah, and so I teach this plus some productivity, I don't like to call them hacks, just techniques to help because you've seen this, we're all very busy, and then sometimes when you're too busy, your mind is just spinning. And so I've found some techniques. I like how you touch on it. You're big on journaling. Certainly journaling, I even call it just like a brain dump, just like get it's a
Mhm.
specific way of doing it. Like you just make three areas and then, work, life, fitness or whatever, you just pick
Mhm.
three and then just start dumping the stuff in your brain out, for example.
Mhm.
So it's productivity tools as well as relaxation tools. And so that's what I teach and has real, it's been great, like just to hear your feedback there about, because it seems like you really know your body, and then to know, okay, this is a piece that was missing, is
Mhm.
great to hear. So
Yeah.
yeah. And
Well,
that
it's
that
always
I
good for us to learn new things and just new techniques because some of these might be the new go-to ones that you needed that weren't something you knew about before. So,
Yeah, and I think we
love
also
that.
just need variety, right? Like
Mhm.
it's all kind of, what is it? One path, many truths, or one truth,
Right.
many paths. Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
we do need the variety and to learn things in a different way. So this just
Mhm.
provides that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and every person is different. So, well, I am so glad that you were with us today. I love meeting new people, and I know my listeners have to get a lot out of this and feel more calm. I tell you, I am ready for I don't know what today, but I'm feeling so like just at peace and calm, and I'm so glad that this is my midday, so I have time to enjoy it for the rest of the day.
awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being so receptive. And the ASMR piece, I'm gonna go back and look at some because I have Spotify, and I think Spotify's got just some great
They
ASMR.
do. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I listen to it on my Spotify on my computer while I'm working. I don't want them to be talking about anything because that disrupts what I'm working on, but the
Yep.
sounds really keep me calm as I'm working on things. And I love that. Or if I'm going to read, sometimes I put just the sound only ones like hand sounds or just like paper sounds while I'm reading. And it's just
Hmm.
so, I feel like I'm calm and reading at the same time or whatever. It's just fun. So, well,
Yeah,
thank you for being with us.
you bet. You bet. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.